Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk today about money. I had a great question in the comments. Someone said, "Hey, I'm a young guy and I want to do what you do." And I think that's great. I really do, because I think it's important. I also think it's low-hanging fruit to get on some land and produce things, because land is really the base of all the economy. And it's one of the things that I think gets left out of the equation. So we're going to look around today a little bit and talk about money. Do we make any money? Have we ever made any money? Do we plan to make any money? Is it necessary to make money? Is making money different than protecting and saving ecosystems? Let's get into it today. So we've done some work recently around here. We've got our heliconia flowers. We've got this nice new double row of pineapples. We've got some rows of potatoes here. We've got all of our elephant ear coming out. Really looking good, this elephant ear crop. And all of this, or at least some of this, will become glorious money. And so we could take a look here. I still have some pineapple to plant, and I actually got in some more yesterday. So this pineapple, right? I mean, farming is about growing crops, and crops are worth money, right? So if I was in Stardew Valley, every time one of these crops produced a pineapple, I would get money. Here's a pineapple we planted a few years ago, and it's got its first pineapple. And one thing you might notice is that every pineapple has the seed. This is the seed. You clean this up and you plant it again. So if we can manage to get, let's say, 100 pineapples, when we harvest those 100 pineapples, we can then plant 200 pineapples, a second 100. And so this maybe seems like a profitable enterprise. Pineapples are worth maybe $2, probably a little less. And so as we look around here, we have other crops. We've got the yucca. Yucca, that probably sounds like money. So I want to get into this. First of all, these are foods. So if I were to buy a pineapple, it would definitely cost $2. And if I were to sell a pineapple, it would probably be a little less than $2. But the question is, we've cleaned out this whole area here. Here's some of our coffee. We're recovering some of the old coffee. We've cleaned it up. Coffee is kind of similar, but let's start with pineapple. The first pineapple I harvest, I might not even eat it. It probably gets eaten before I get home or even notice. Unless I'm the first one to notice it. That's what usually happens to pineapples. Same thing with these yucca crops. Mostly as much as we can pull up, here's another pineapple. Mostly as much as we can pull up, we eat it. We eat it as fast as we can. Well, not as fast as we can, but we only pull it up when we need it, and then we eat it. So we now grow slightly more of this yucca than we can eat. And so, again, you might be thinking, that means money. The first reason that crops are not necessarily money is because we might eat them. And that's actually an interesting situation. We can lower our expenses. I don't have to spend so much money on pineapple or yucca. And but that does not track over to the balance sheet, right? That is not a cash flow. It is just a lowering of your expenses. And so polyculture, planting many different things, is actually really good at this. You can get small harvests of many different things and lower your expenses. The second reason that crops might not necessarily be money is because of gift culture. So here where I live, it's a really strong gift culture. Usually if someone visits you, they'll give you a gift. A lot of times it's bread. They'll go to a bakery and bring some bread because we don't have bakeries on the farm. And generally we would give them something back. Could be an avocado, could be some guavas, could be some yucca, could be a pineapple. And so similarly with the neighbors will often try to give us gifts. And we'll try to think about what sort of gifts we should give them back, right? Because if they have, if everybody's growing avocados and yucca, and then they give you an avocado and a yucca, what are you going to give them back? Well, luckily, we have pineapple, and not everybody around here has pineapple. And so giving gifts and exchanging, that becomes kind of a currency, but it's not money. Again, it's not going to appear on your balance statement, on your balance sheet. It's kind of a social currency. So we've got internal kind of eating the food. We've got sharing the food with others, which I think brings good karma, but at least it doesn't lose us any karma by never giving back gifts. And then finally, if we can get it to a certain stage, we can actually make cash. Now here's the big deal that I discovered. I probably knew this. I knew when I came down here 11 years ago that the base of the economy, everything we make, and if you include mining and farming, it's everything. Everything we make comes from the land. Okay, some things come from the sea, but basically everything comes from the earth, and the land is the part we can really manage, right? We can live here and we can decide. We can create a system, kind of like Stardew Valley, kind of like playing a video game. I can come, and this is the farm that we have, and there's certain decisions about picking where you're going to begin your game, what biome you're going to begin. But generally, we get to the point where we want to sell some crops. And so I thought that every crop has some value, and that's true if there are supply chains. So in our town, the reason that people grow generally coffee, chocolate, avocados, platanos, or bananas is because those are the things that are really easy to sell in any quantity. This, our little town, exports to several cities as many bananas or plantains or yucca or avocados or coffee, exports to all the world. As much as you can grow, you can sell them. It's a pretty stable price. There's some issues with the pricing. Some of those products, like the bananas, people, I think growers take a hit and the intermediaries take a lot of the money, but that's in every business, right? And so those supply chains are complete. I could take a banana into town and that banana will get to somebody that wants to eat the banana. They'll pay for the banana. So the guy who took it to them will get paid, and all the way back in time, I'll have gotten paid for the banana. And that's great. Now, my theory was with the polyculture that we could grow different things, and those things would have value. I'm going to tell you a very interesting anecdote. It was kind of our first lesson about money. And it was as I was identifying promising species. I had identified the castor oil tree. And I said, this is going to be big. This is it. It's easy to grow. It grows practically by itself. And it has value. Everything has value. And so in that time, I learned a story because I was, of course, telling all my neighbors, this is it. Let's grow this. It's so easy. I got some seeds. You want some? And I had at one point or another a lot of those trees around. It competed well with the weeds, the other things that we're trying to grow. And it was a tree. It grew up. It gave shade. And I heard this story of a guy. He was crazy about cardamom. Cardamom is a very expensive product, and it grows here. It grows in the shade. You can plant it in the bamboo groves or around your bamboo groves. You could plant it basically in shady areas, which are not the areas generally where they grow the main crops. Right? The coffee is a sun-resistant variety now, so it doesn't like the shade as much. Chocolate as well. They put it at a certain altitude so it doesn't need a canopy. And similarly down the line, these products have been, these agricultural crops, just like everywhere in the world, are using the best practice that they know, which is monoculture. Define the series of things you need to do and do it 1,000 times and you're done. Whereas, of course, a polyculture system, every single species has a different thing you need to do. You need to figure out how to work that all together. Is there even time to do all these different things? And if you're not doing it, only coffee, for example, only coffee, well, then I get a big old coffee shelling machine, right? But if I'm doing a little coffee, how much money do I have to spend on the coffee machine? If I'm only doing a little bit, is it worth it? these questions don't come up in monoculture. If you're into monoculture, you do everything. You get all the machines for your one thing, and you push it all the way through the most value you can add to it, and you put it into the supply chain. Well, the cardamom guy planted cardamom all over his farm, gave all of his friends cardamom. They started planting. It takes a little while to grow, and it started growing, and this is an expensive product. People pay a lot of money for cardamom, especially like in places like India. And they were starting to get really excited. It was starting to harvest, and they realized they didn't know anyone in India. Nobody in Colombia eats cardamom or whatever you do with cardamom. They didn't know that nobody will buy it. They've never heard of it before. It seems like that would be cool if someone in India paid for it, but we don't know anyone in India. We don't know how to get it to India. And he failed, and all of his friends kind of that planted it thought, well, there it is. He failed. No use in trying. Look at that failure. We don't plant new things because you can't sell them. And over 10 years, there has been it's funny because I did it. I came in and I was like, Ija, let's plant castor oil. And I planted a bunch and gave some away. And in the end, I found out, yeah, they'll buy it for 50 cents a kilogram in Benadillo. So to get my castor oil beans in Benadillo, I'd have to, I did some calculations. I'd have to fill up so much of a truck, which would cost this much, and then I'd make, $100 or whatever. But that was my first lesson, right? I can plant castor oil. I could even grow castor oil. But if I ever want to make money with it, I need 1,000 kilograms. I need to fill the truck. That's the only way it makes sense, money-wise. And the problem with castor oil is I don't eat it. I don't give it away anymore. It's not a prized crop that somebody would say, hey, thanks for giving me that castor oil. Right? So I came into this and I thought, if poor people in the rural areas are so poor, why don't they do something different? And I started doing a whole bunch of different stuff. And not only with the different things I did, but with the things I heard. I talked to a lot of people. And over the 10 years, projects have come, oil beans, different, and they're always proposing, this is a new crop, you should plant it. And the people, well, will you buy it? Probably. Well, probably there'll be a buyer. Oh, yeah, there is a buyer in Medellin. That's closer than India for sure. But it's always, you always have to figure out, especially if you're going for money, how far can I take it? And then what infrastructure is there for me to get to that next level? Now, my theory has always been, still is, I still believe this, a properly constructed farm, polyculture farm, is going to be more productive. It's going to be more productive. And I know this is true in biomass terms, and we could talk about this in another video, but in biomass terms, which is what's best for the soil, which is best for biodiversity, polyculture is better. But how much of that biomass is harvestable? How much of it can I turn into cash? Right? Now, I can grow my own food, and that's worth a certain amount of money, but it's not worth infinite money because I can put a price on it. How much does it cost for me to eat, buy other people's food and eat all month, and I can put a price on it. Is that price worth 100 hours a month? 40 hours a month? What is that worth? So we could put a price on it. Probably in terms of feeding yourself, it's not the most cost-efficient way, but boy, is it quality efficient. But we still need to get to the point, and we're working on it. We're working really hard, and I hope to take you guys through this adventure. We're still working on exactly designing the system to produce certain throughputs that make money. And we have identified certain species. I'm very excited. And it's one of the reasons why one of the main products we're aiming for is fence posts. Fence posts. It's brilliant. Everybody in this town, in the next town, in the town above us, everybody needs fence posts. There's a lot of cattle ranching. And what people normally do is they go into the forest and they chop down as many native trees, pioneer species. They have some identified, particular ones that work pretty good for fence posts. They get fence posts. They last 5, 6, 7 years until they start to rot. They fall over. Maybe you can flip them over and do it once more, but they have a lifespan, and it has a price. $4, $5, $6, depending on the qualities of the fence posts. It has a price, and so I can sustainably produce fence posts, and I have a local market. I don't have to go to India. I don't have to. Now, one of the things I could do, there's another item, same plant. We're going with the biburnum. We're going to make fence posts, but it also could produce handles, tool handles, axe handles. But for that, we need a lathe. Right now, a lathe is an expensive machine. I haven't bought a lathe yet. I would like to have one. I do have a coffee sheller because we grew with coffee for a long time. We still have some coffee. But I don't have a lathe. So at what point does it make sense to invest, let's say, $1,000? How many fence posts do I need to be producing to make sense? Handles do I need to be producing for the lathe to make sense? This is a math problem. And something about time as well. Right? At what point, how many do I need to have stacked up in my garage to make it make sense to get that lathe? Right? And so, yes, farms need to make money. And one of our revolutionary proposals, which is not really all that revolutionary, is that ecological restoration projects should also be profitable. And that's because healthy ecosystems produce a lot of yield. Generally, if we leave the forest alone, the yields it produces are for birds and beasts. They're not necessarily for us, although over the medium and long term, we do get wood, firewood, handles and posts and stuff, and people generally do manage the forest like that. There's also some tree saps that are valuable. The drago tree, you can scratch it, or the rubber tree, you could scratch it and get some latex out of it. So there's different harvests you can do for a forest. But what about vines? What about seeds? Artisanal beads around here, that's very popular. We're growing a couple different types of material for like necklaces, seeds, and beads. Lágrima de San Pedro is a very cool one. I just planted 30 more plots of that. And it actually is a grass that gives a seed, and it has a hole in it already. You pick it and you put a little needle through it. There's some fibers, but it actually has a hole so that it's really easy. You don't have to drill through the seed. And we think that could be a very exciting possibility for money. It sells for $5 a kilogram, and it's a grass. It's easy to grow. And so we have identified several species. We're trying to make, over the medium term, as much money as possible. And how are we doing that in the meantime? Well, we kind of work side jobs, part-time jobs. Luckily, when we stopped kind of putting everything into the coffee, we took a break and we went out in the world and we reconnected. I got a job, my wife got a job, then she got another job, then I opened kind of a freelancing business. And so we're able to work part-time to support our farming habit. But this is the pension plan. I think that this farm can produce more than we need for a pension into our old age. And that is important. The last point I'd like to make is why profitable ecological restoration is what we need to change the world. In temperate climates, it's interesting with the pastured poultry profits. There's actually a model, and it works, and so people are copying it, and it's kind of expanding. People are doing these more sustainable grazing practices. It's just that model doesn't work here. We need a different model, and there's probably 1 million models. It'd be great if there was 1 million people experimenting with the polyculture. And so we need to develop our own model, and we think, and it should become profitable. Once it's profitable, think about it this way, from the mind of a farmer. If there is a profitable way, something that's more profitable than what you're doing, you don't have to use poisons, you don't have to buy as much stuff from the store, you get to have more flowers, more birds, more animals, and it's more profitable. Suddenly we don't need government intervention. We don't need grants. We don't need to incentivize people to save the birds and the bees. when the birds and the bees are the most profitable way to make a living. And all we have to do is build a few models, just like it happened in the United States and Europe with the sustainable grazing. We are hoping to build some models of sustainable agroforestry. We're experimenting here, and we're very interested. I watch a bunch of YouTube about different people doing different things, and I hope to be distilling these things into kind of a framework which I can share with the world. There are, I'm sure, more ecosystems that are underserved. The temperate kind of pasture ranchland seems like it has some cool models with chestnuts, with grazing, with silvopasture. We just have a different ecosystem, so we need to propose new models, profitable models. Money is important. It's like water in the ecosystem. It has to flow, right? So money has to be flowing. That's healthy water. Stagnant money or stagnant water, that causes diseases, that causes problems. And so we want, energetically, we want to prove, and we're in that process, and we hope to take you along with us, that ecological restoration can be profitable. And soon, we hope, it's the only thing that makes sense to do with our land here on planet Earth.